Hey folks, it's Joy. Welcome to my channel. And today I wanted to talk more in depth about the SAT adversity score. But before I get started, go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you're new. And if you appreciate my content, go ahead and like this video. It really does help me a lot and I appreciate it. Okay, like I said, today we're going to be talking in depth about the SAT adversity score and kind of what it all means. Since the SAT announced that they'd be sending the adversity score with test scores to schools, a lot of students have been wondering, what does it all mean? What is the SAT adversity score? Will I see it? What does it have on it? So I want to talk more in depth about kind of what you should expect as an applicant when you send your applications in, and what is this SAT adversity score going to look like? So if you look at the screen here, I have a chart, and when I worked in admissions last year, we were part of the test group that did a pilot to see if the SAT adversity score would actually be useful in college applications. And I'll go back and say this again, but the SAT adversity score is a means for colleges to take into account socioeconomic factors without necessarily relying on the race of a student. So you have this lawsuit at Harvard where a group, mostly Asian students, are suing because the affirmative action policies that Harvard uses now, which are largely based on race, they claim that they're discriminatory. So again, SAT adversity score is a way to get around kind of using race in admissions, but have the same effect virtually, where you're diversifying the student body and you're getting groups from not only the wealthy elite who can afford all the college prep, but students from different socioeconomic backgrounds that are diverse from across the nation and internationally as well. So again, I'll kind of go over this chart here. And before I do that, I'll pull this other one up that basically tells you that the SAT adversity index, again, as a part of the College Board's SAT, broken up into three areas: neighborhood environment, which includes crime rate, poverty rate, housing values, and vacancy rate; have the family environment, and that's going to be the median income, whether you're a part of a single parent household, your parents' education level, and then if you're English second language student. And then you have your high school environment, and that'll be the undermatching, curricular rigor, the free and reduced lunch rate at your school, and then how many AP opportunities, how many AP tests are taken amongst the student body there, because that says a lot about what resources are available. So if we look at this new chart, again, I said we got to look at this when we were assessing applications last year, and we used this to evaluate those socioeconomic factors as a part of our admissions evaluations. So I'll go through this. First, you have at the top the summary environmental context. And basically what that tells you is it shows you to the left there the median, which is 50%. And then in this example, you see that the students' overall environmental adversity is 86, which means they're above the median. And if you're at a school like mine, where we give an extra point, I'll call it that, for students who are above, I think, the 75 range, or maybe above the 75 range, they get an extra point. So that's kind of what that means. And you see it says neighborhood there and then high school. So the overall disadvantage in the neighborhood is 88, and that's the neighborhood where the school is located. So if you're in, south side of Chicago, that's going to be the disadvantage level in that zip code. And then you see to the right of that, in darker blue, the high school disadvantage level. So that takes all the students together and says, what is their cumulative advantage? So you can see the neighborhood disadvantage level is slightly higher than the disadvantage level for the folks at the school, which means you probably get some students coming from more affluent neighborhoods into the school, and driving that disadvantage level down. To the right of that, at the top, you see the SAT score in high school context, and that would be a part of the high school context vector. So to the left, you have environmental context, and then to the right, you have the high school context. And a lot of what they're going to factor in, and again, I talked about this, is not only AP scores, the undermatching that I talked about first is SAT scores. So what they're basically asking is, what is the average SAT score at this school? And you can see again in this example, the student is at a 1290, which is above the average. If I'm looking right, it looks like the 50th percentile, which would be the average, is a 930. So in this example, the student is way above that. So that means that they're doing better they have a higher test score than most students at their school, which again is good, because it's telling you with the same amount of resources, this student has achieved a higher test score than the average student there. And then you see some more of the high school context here. It's in the suburbs, which we don't really use that information. You see the free reduced lunch rate. And again, if the free previously, and there's a train going back through, I don't know if you guys can hear it, but previously, if your free reduced lunch rate, I believe we started at 60%. Don't quote me on that, but let's just say if your free and reduced lunch rate was higher than a 60%, in this example it's 85%, then you would get an extra point. And then you have some more information here, which different schools may use, but we didn't necessarily use. Senior class 584, and that kind of tells you, like, if it's a 2,000 huge senior class, limited resources with the same amount of money, it just kind of speaks to that context. And then I think this score here, SAT at colleges attended. So what is the average SAT score at the colleges that the students who graduated from this high school achieve? So every student who's graduated from this high school and gone off to college, what is the average SAT score at those schools? So it's telling you that it's 1128. And again, in this example, the student has a 1290 and the average is a 930. So you can see that most students who end up going to college have a higher SAT average than the average student at the school. And then again, I'll talk about AP opportunities. And this really speaks to the number of resources a school has, which is why it's calculated in the disadvantage level. So if a student is only able to take 4 AP classes, again, as an admissions reader, as admissions evaluator, admissions officer, I cannot fault that student for not taking 2 full years of AP classes if their school only offers 4 classes. And so you can see here, it says seniors taking AP, 41%, about half the class. The average AP exams taken is 2.92, so almost 3. And then it says unique exams administered. So how many different exams, AP exams at this school were taken on, AP test day, 18 different tests were taken. So that's a fairly good amount. I would say that's what I expect to see at the average high school that's well-resourced in the United States is, between 10 and 20 AP classes offered. So I would say with regard to AP, pretty average score. And then you see they go into depth with the environmental context, and they're using the national rate here, which would be different from the state. It's showing you, if you go to the bottom left overall level, the overall median again is 50. And then this student, in this example, has an overall disadvantage level of 86, which means they're about 36 percentage points above the median. So if you were to take the average student, compare him to this student in the example has a much higher disadvantage level than the average student. And for that reason, again, instead of taking race into account, we would take that overall disadvantage level and factor it into the application assessment. Meaning, a student who comes from a more disadvantaged background has a harder time applying for college, whether that's because they're first generation, don't have college prep resources, have to work a job after school and thus can't study for the SAT and ACT because they have to help provide for their family. So forth and so fewer library resources, fewer teachers, fewer counselors. That is all goes into effect with this environmental context. What's the crime, high school and environmental context? What's the crime rate? What's the housing stability? Do more people rent or buy? And then what's the overall education level in the neighborhood? So all that goes into the environmental context, and you can see that with the overall disadvantage level. And then it again talks about the SAT score, but I won't go into depth about that again. The only thing I don't really see on this example, and it'll be interesting to see what they actually roll out once we start assessing applications, is more about the family environment. It doesn't really tell you if the student comes from a single parent household, doesn't reveal the education level of the parents, though it does tell you the education level of the neighborhood, and it doesn't really indicate the median income of the parents, which median income, education level, whether the student is first generation, so from immigrant from a different country, and whether the student comes from a single parent household. Those are all factors that that I've been trained to take into account on college applications, and, to put it in simplistic terms, give the student an extra point or two if they come from a family that's first generation, if they come from a single parent household, if they come from an English second language household, if they come from a low income household. Because again, that allows us to diversify our student body when it comes to socioeconomic factors, so that every student sitting in the classroom with you isn't from the same background, that we're providing opportunities to a diverse student body to create the most inclusive, safe, creative, and productive college campus possible. And so, when you think about the SAT adversity score, you really have to think about all those factors. I know it's a lot, but again, going back to this chart, I expect to kind of see this when I evaluate applications this fall, along with all the academic indicators and the personal essays and the extracurriculars. And I'll say this, I don't expect students who submit SAT scores to schools to see this. I don't think it's going to pop up on the College Board website when you go view your SAT scores. I would be surprised if it did, just because we've been using these factors for years and students have never been privy to what exactly the numbers are. And so, as good or bad, I don't believe students will have the opportunity, or applicants, I should say, prospective students. I don't believe test takers, I don't believe they'll have the opportunity to actually see their SAT adversity score or really analyze it and take it into account like they do SAT scores. So that's what I wanted to get on here and talk about. I wanted to go into the SAT adversity score in depth to give folks more information about, what to expect when the SAT adversity score starts rolling out this fall for this college admissions season. Thank you for being here. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you can stay up to date on when I release new videos. Trying to get out 3 videos a week as we get more into college admissions season. So stay tuned and check back, because I'm here and I'm happy to provide this information so that you can be successful on your journey to college. But that's it for now. Thank you and see you later. Bye.